So recently on social media, I asked if anybody had any questions for me about van life, and I expected to get 1 or 2 questions, and I got about 15. So for my first video, I'm heading over to the lake this morning, and I'm going to answer to the best of my ability your questions about van life. Question number 1, how did you get into van life? Well, this is a little bit morbid, I suppose, but everybody was watching TV during COVID, during the pandemic. Everybody was staying at home, and the terrible news story started circulating on television about Gabby Petito and her disappearance and ultimately her murder. And in the news stories, they kept mentioning hashtag van life. They said she was part of this hashtag van life. And I'd never heard of that. I don't know that I'd ever heard a news story so frequently use the term hashtag. And so that got me curious about what van life was and I suppose hashtag van life. So that's literally how I discovered van life. Question number 2, why choose a van and not a camper? That's a great question. It really depends on what your overall intention is and what kind of camping and sleeping do you plan on doing. I think of a camper as either something that sits on top of the back of a pickup or something that gets pulled behind a pickup. I did not own a pickup, so to get a camper per se, I would need to get a pickup to tow the camper. Of course, I bought this van when I got interested in van life, so I suppose you could argue that I would have to buy a vehicle either way, but in the other scenario, I would have to buy a vehicle and a camper. But I live in a neighborhood that has an HOA, and they're very understanding, they're very acceptable. People have horror stories about HOAs. I haven't had a problem with my HOA, but one of the rules is you cannot park a camper or an RV in your driveway. So if I were to have bought a camper, I would have to also pay to store it somewhere. So one of these RV rental or RV storage places. So I'd have a monthly fee, and I would have to, go get it every time that I wanted to go camping. The other thing I would say is it depends on your lifestyle or what your intentions are. Mine is to go on adventures in a vehicle and then have a convenient place to sleep during those adventures or afterwards. So I think RVs and specifically campers are really good if you plan to go to a place and then stay there. Like if you want to set up camp, literally set up camp and stay somewhere for a few days, I think that's probably a pretty good solution. Obviously with a camper, you're going to get a lot more amenities, you're going to get a lot more space, you're going to get a more comfortable bed potentially, you're going to get more storage room and more room for passengers and more comforts. But that's not really what I plan on doing. I plan on going on road trips, driving around and seeing things. I might drive an hour or 2 away from home to go see something, crash in the van overnight. Let's not use the word crash, sleep in the van overnight, and then come back home. So it really is just the choice would be what your overall goals are. And for me, the idea of being able to drive somewhere to go see something, sleep for the night for free, and then come home the next day, that's really what enticed me. So that's why I chose a van over a camper or an RV. I combined 2 different questions for number 3. One question is, what is the best van to own? And the other question was, do you wish you could stand up in your van? So if you haven't watched any of my other videos, I have a Ford E250 van. It is tall enough to walk around in, but obviously hunched over. I can't stand up straight in this van. I think the ceiling is 4 foot or less. So would I like a van that I could stand up in? Absolutely, you bet. I think that would be pretty great. However, there's a couple of things. Number 1, I've looked at the bigger vans, like the Sprinter van, the big Ford Connect van, those vans, and For even the mileage, getting the ones with a lot of mileage, I see those for 20 to 30,000. If you want those newer, 60, 80, sometimes $100,000, and this van was 6,500 bucks. So, not knowing if I was going to enjoy, quote, van life, how often I was going to go use the van, and this is my first build, a lot of things, I couldn't put that kind of investment into a first time purchase. I had a motorcycle as a third, a recreational weekend vehicle before I had the van. I sold the motorcycle and it almost exactly paid for the van. More or less, let's say it paid for the purchase of the van. So if I were to buy a $50,000 van or $100,000 van, now I'm talking years and years of payments. And also there's kind of that thing about buying a brand new vehicle or a newer vehicle and then drilling holes in it. One of the first things I did in this van was cut a hole to put a max air fan in the roof. And I just don't know that I would be comfortable doing that on a more expensive van. So would being able to stand up in a van be convenient? You bet. I don't think there's anybody from a comfort standpoint that says, I wish I had a lower van. I think everybody wants a taller van. Now there are two advantages to having a medium-sized van. Let's call this a medium van, a cargo van, and even the smallest category, which would be a minivan. And the reason for those, and we're going to get to this question next, is they allow for stealth camping. This van is just about as stealth as you can get. Again, I want to talk, we'll dive more into what stealth camping means, what it means to me. I don't think you can drive a 20-foot van and go park it in a parking lot somewhere and not raise someone's attention. I think if you see a van like that parked somewhere, people go, there's somebody sleeping in that van. Where if somebody sees this van parked somewhere, they think it is a utility van or a delivery van, and I don't think they think twice about it, especially as plain as I've kept the outside of this van. It goes even double so for minivans. Minivans, you could park anywhere. You could park all that stuff about people worrying about getting the knock or whatever. You could park a minivan anywhere. Go to any parking lot in town, leave it overnight, nobody will look twice at it. So that's the advantage, I think, of the smaller type vans. Price would be the first one for me. And number two is the ability to stealth camp. Question number 4, this is a good one. Do you have to be a minimalist to be into van life? Well, a lot of you don't know me or know the other content that I create. You know me only from BigRobsVan. But the 30-second version is, my wife once called me the collector of collections. I've been collecting things my entire life. I have hundreds and hundreds of Star Wars collectibles. I have other toys. I have computers, old computers. I probably have 20 retro computers and consoles and things like that. So if there is something called a minimalist, I am about the furthest from. If all my things weren't collectible and clean, I would say I was bordering, coming close to the line where hoarding starts. So I am the complete and absolute opposite of a minimalist. I'm not a minimalist at all. Now, that being said, I don't live in this van. This van is a weekend hobby. This is something I take out on road trips. This is something I take out to go spend a day at the lake. And so I don't have all the things in this van that I would need to live. I don't have clothes, for example, in this van. Right now, the van build is very stripped down. I'm just changing some stuff out. So really what I have are some batteries, a bed, which doubles as a seat, my computer, a few other odds and ends. So I don't even have my refrigerator in here right now. The refrigerator's at home. So I think, I've seen a lot of van life videos. God, have I seen a lot of van life videos. And, sometimes you see people that are very minimalistic, and sometimes you see people that look like they are living inside a rat's nest. They just have stuff all around them and stuff. And there is a part of me at home, I won't say that I like that closed in, claustrophobic feeling, but I have shelves surrounding me on every wall in my home office. I have lots of things, I do like things, I do like stuff. So does minimalism go with van life? If you are living in a van or even going on long-term trips, yeah, you gotta pare stuff down. You can't take 10 pairs of shoes. You might not be able to take 2 pairs of shoes. You have to really pick and choose. And this is an interesting side tangent on that, is I don't think you really know what you need until you've done this. And I'm not an expert. I'm as far from being an expert on this as there is. But what I can tell you is before I started this, I watched all these videos and I went and bought a bunch of stuff, and I haven't used a lot of those things. And I may never use some of those things. So before building a van, you know, if you're interested in van life, it's real tempting to watch videos, to watch my videos, watch other people's videos and say, oh, they have this, they have that. I would recommend not doing that. In fact, I watched one video where a guy said, and this is an extreme example, but he said, I went out and camped in my van with nothing. And I came home and was like, wow, I wish I had a mattress. And he had a mattress. This is an exaggeration. But he went out a second time and was like, wow, it's really cold. I should probably get a sleeping bag. He got a sleeping bag. And so he only put the things in his van that he absolutely needed. And that's probably a pretty good way of doing things. So am I personally a minimalist? No. But if you're gonna be in a van, the longer and the more time you're gonna spend in a van, the less things you should probably take with you. Question number 5, this one comes up a lot. Are you going to have air conditioning in your van? Well, the short answer is no. And the reason for that is because the power and the electricity that you have at your fingertips inside a van is not the same as what you have in your house. So I have what I call a fakery battery. One of the big name brands is Jackery. Jackery, send me a battery. I need one. Blue Eddie, I love you. Send me a battery. What I have right now is a third-party knockoff of a Jackery that I refer to as my fakery battery. But I bought it because it was a good deal and it has a lot of capacity. It has just over 1,000 watt hours that it can store. So when you charge this thing, you get 1,000 watt hours. But not everybody knows what that means. Well, if you have a light bulb that's rated for 100, you see 100 watts or whatever, that means it uses 100 watts per hour. So if I plug that into my battery, one light bulb, that light bulb would last 10 hours and then the battery would be dead. I wouldn't be able to use the battery for anything else, nor could I use it for anything else while I was doing that. If I plugged in 2 light bulbs, that giant battery would only last me 5 hours. So you have to be very, very energy conscious when you're doing anything with van life. A lot of the things I have are USB rechargeable. I have USB rechargeable puck lights. My camera gear, I have a GoPro that I recharge through USB-C. I've got these batteries back here where I can run things if I have to, but I try to really plan what I'm gonna use electricity-wise. And before I leave, really what I need to do is the night before plan out everything I'm going to do and start charging things, because I've already, this trip, I came out to spend the day, pulled something out and was like, well, that's not charged. So a small window air unit that you might see in a house, like an air conditioner that you put in, the smallest ones, the smallest ones that I've seen, that you would think of as being an air conditioner, start around 900 watts. So that means they're going to use 900 watts per hour. So I could put an air conditioner like that in this van. It would run for about an hour and then I would be out of power. So there's just no way to do it. Now, let's say I'm going to a campsite that has power. Well, then I could hook up to their electrical system, maybe with a 110 or maybe a 30 amp outlet, and I could plug in an air conditioner. But it goes back to, what do I plan on doing? And that's not what I plan on doing. I don't really plan on going to campsites. I don't plan on going and staying, by a lake for 2 or 3 days. I'm kind of an urban traveler. I want to go to museums. I want to go to different states. I want to go see different things, and use this kind of as a mobile office and kind of as a crash pad, really. So, again, it goes back into what you're wanting to use it for. So if you're going to a place where you're going to have what they call shore power and you can plug in with an extension cord, then air conditioning makes sense. The rooftop air conditioners I've seen are $2,000 or $3,000, and as little as I would be able to use one, it just doesn't make sense for me. Now, what do I have? I have a USB rechargeable fan, which works really good. I also have the Max Air vent fan that I talked about, so I could get circulation going through the van. When it's super hot, does that work? No. It's super hot in here. I'm driving around in a tin can. When it's hot outside, it's hot inside. I'm not done insulating the van. And so, yeah, when it's hot, it's hot. When it's cold, it's cold. This is a hobby for me. I live in a house. So when it's super hot outside, I go in my house, I turn on the air conditioning. So again, that's more of a thing that you would see in campers and RVs, but probably not in a van this size. Question number 6. What is stealth camping? Well, if you're familiar with all my old content, you know that I do a podcast where I talk about things from the 80s, and I've done podcasts about ninjas. So when I think of stealth, I think of ninjas. I think of people that were able to sneak through the night, to be unseen, to maybe sneak into an enemy's castle or fortress, steal something, and sneak out, without ever being detected. So that doesn't mean they were invisible. That just means you didn't notice them. That just means they didn't draw attention to themselves. And in fact, a lot of actual historical accounts of ninjas, they often wore costumes. They often dressed up as farmers or field, rice workers, things like that, where they worked out in the field. So it wasn't that they were invisible, like a superhero is invisible. It's just you didn't notice them because they blended in. So stealth camping, there's a couple of definitions out there. One definition is basically, it's camping places that are not designated as camping places. If you watch YouTube videos, you'll see them. You'll see people parked at Walmart. You'll see people parked at Cracker Barrel. Those are places where you can get permission, but stealth camping is a little bit another level past that. Stealth camping is camping on the side of the road, maybe parked outside of in a neighborhood. It's parked in a parking lot that's not designated for camping. Everybody does van life their own way, and I'm gonna make another video where I talk about that, because when you say van life is a very big, broad spectrum of stuff. Van life can mean someone who has lost their house, they've lost all their material possessions, and in lieu of living on the street, they have moved into a vehicle, a van. Sometimes it's an SUV, a car, it could be anything, but you have people that have been forced into van life as an alternative to living on the street, to being homeless. So that is one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum are people that spend $250,000 on pre-converted vans that go out and have adventures. They go out, they go camping, and at the lake, they go to expensive resorts, and then they come back. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle. There's people who live in their vans. There's people that are part-time in their vans. I have experience with this through other hobbies. I have done, for example, retro computers and retro video games. And I have got into arguments with people who will tell you what's the best way to enjoy your hobby. What should you be doing, There's always somebody out there ready to tell you that you're enjoying things the wrong way. You're doing it the wrong way. And here's the reality. There's no rules. There's no score. Nobody cares. Buy a van, paint it pink, park it at a police station, see what happens. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to do. So for me, the thing that's the most enticing about van life is being able to go on road trips, to go on little places, to go park places you're not supposed to park, to put your shields up, put all your window covers on, and go sit there and hide in your little hidey hole, sleep overnight, and then wake up the next day and continue your road trip. I have personally driven to all 48 states with my wife and my kids. When I was younger, I drove to many, many states and slept in my car. I slept in a car, I slept in a truck. So that part of van life is not really new to me. What is new is actually having a bed, having these batteries where I can recharge things, having a fan, you know, a little bit of amenities. And so that's what appeals to me. That's what I'm doing. Is that what's right for you? Maybe not. Is that what's right for somebody else on YouTube? Maybe not. It doesn't matter to me. I think, you know, my wife taught me a lesson a long time ago, which is there's enough room for everybody to succeed. There's enough success out there where people can do different things and everybody can have fun. You can enjoy things your own way. So as I'm going on my adventures, if you think that's fun to watch, I'd love to have you. I'd love to interact with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll be giving you my thoughts. But yeah, so stealth camping to me is a big appeal of van life. I don't want to go park in the woods and sit there for a week. Now, would I like to go to the woods for a day? Sure. Go to the woods, stay for a night, go on. I'm a little ADD, so I get bored easily. I like fishing for about 5 minutes. It's a little boring to me, to be honest. So I like adventure. I like seeing things, I like doing things, I like experiencing things, but I don't like sitting still. I don't like sitting in one place for a long time. So stealth camping to me is the ability to drive a vehicle, a van in this case, that has some amenities that I can go park somewhere and blend in well enough where I can stay for a day or two, who knows, and not have someone suspect that somebody is inside this van. That's what stealth camping means to me. Question number 7, I kind of covered this. This question says, were you a roughing it kid when you were growing up? The thought of sleeping in a car feels like really roughing it. Well, first of all, was I a roughing it kid? No, roughing it for me was having to climb the ladder to the top bunk bed instead of sleeping on the bottom bunk bed. And by the way, I had my own room. I was just a weird kid that had bunk beds. But I did not go tent camping with my family. I only remember sleeping in a tent twice as a child, and both times were in my backyard. My parents set up a tent for me, and I had friends over for a slumber party. We slept in my backyard. So camping is not a part of my background. There's an appeal to experience that a little bit. I'd like to go park somewhere and do things. I'd like to start cooking more. We'll talk about that in another question. I'd like to do some of those things, but I don't have a background in it, that's for sure. So as I'm gonna move into trying some of these things, it's gonna be for a first time. It's not, I don't have that experience. So some of those things, again, I would say sound interesting, but in little doses. I don't want to go hike for a week somewhere. Would I like to go hike somewhere for a day? Maybe. I'll check that out. So was I a kid into roughing it? No. Now there's the second part really to that question, which is it sounds like sleeping in a car is roughing it. It can be, but that's kind of the goal of having a van. That's why I'm not doing Toyota Prius life. Which people do. People totally live in their Toyota Priuses. There's lots of people on YouTube that live in small cars, either by choice or out of necessity. I bought this van. This was not my dream van. My dream van is a Chevy Astro. My mom had a Chevy Astro when I was a teenager. I had a Chevy Astro when I was in my mid-20s. They stopped making the Chevy Astro in the mid-2000s, so the best case scenario, the newest Chevy Astro I could get is almost 20 years old. I'm not a car mechanic guy, so I didn't get into this to work on engines and change plugs and do all that. I got into this because I want to drive a van around and go have some fun. So would you say this is roughing it? Well, roughing it to me is like doing without stuff. And so this is roughing it in the sense that it is still very safe and I'm still very privileged. So, and I know those things. So, roughing it, I have 9 inches of foam. I have a 6-inch mattress that was a little too firm and I put a 3-inch mattress on top of it. So that's not really roughing it to me. Could it get a little chilly in here? It could, but I have alternatives. Any uncomfortable scenario or experience that I put myself in is by choice. And again, I think it's important to recognize the difference. So any complaining I do, I have brought upon myself. I've not been forced into this. I'm doing all this because I want to, because I think it sounds like a lot of fun. So, you know, roughing it, I mean, I have giant batteries that run things. I installed a fan. I have all these amenities, you know, I mean, I have a laptop right there. I have internet access right here at the lake. So is it roughing it? I mean, a little bit, but it's not rough. And it is I would almost avoid the word roughing it, because there are people in this world that do have it rough. There are people living in their car who, you know, go to Goodwill to get blankets to pile on in the cold. When it's, you know, below freezing, they don't have anywhere to go but in their car. So to me, that's roughing it. To this is, at best, discomfort by choice. That's probably a better word for what I'm doing. Question number 8 is an interesting one. It says, can you be a real van life person and not sleep in your van? Like, say you have an awesome in-van setup with a rad sofa and video games, but when it's time to sleep, you pull into the nearest Motel 6. Well, you could. To go back to the previous, or a question I answered a couple ago, there's no rules for van life. There's no referee. There's no guy that comes out and he's like, hey, here's a foul. I saw what you were doing. You were plugged into something. You had air conditioning, and these guys, it doesn't matter. Again, I would say the whole van life community, I'm an outsider. I see all these people and they're like, oh, we went to this gathering. I'm not going to no gatherings. I'm just driving around like a dummy. I'm winging all this, right? And I comment on people, and I've made some friends, some online connections of other people that are doing van life, and they're doing things a little bit differently than I'm doing. That's okay. I love that. I encourage that. Not that they need my permission, but you know, for me, I think everybody could do their own thing. So if you wanted to get a van and have your cool setup and then go stay at a Motel 6, you could do that. Now, what would beg the question for me is, why would you do that? Because the whole point for me personally is you got a place to sleep. I mean, that is like the bare minimum of van life, you know, is, can you sleep? And then everything else you start adding on to that. Next is, can you go to the bathroom? Can you cook? Can you, use a computer? Well, can you change clothes? What can you do? So, but it all starts for me where it starts for me, I would say, is, can you sleep in your vehicle comfortably? So you could do that. But I would say if someone was gonna do that, I would say, well, when are you spending time in the van? I mean, I would be going to a van and then going to a place, and then when I was done, I would go to the hotel. So I don't know when I would just be sitting in the van and then paying money to go to a hotel. That's another big thing about van life, is ways to save money. You know, a lot of people do van life, they do it full time, so they're doing remote work, and they're always looking for ways to save money. So that wouldn't really fit into that particular lifestyle if that's why someone chose to go into van life. So I wouldn't personally do that, but I would say, again, to do another callback, if you say, hey, I'm do van life and the only thing that I do is park at Walmarts and I eat Walmart food, knock yourself out. I just really think there's too much emphasis on people saying this is the right way to do van life, or this is the only way to do van life. I just don't buy into that. I think if you take a look at all the people just in America, right? And then you go, what percentage of those people are doing van life? And it's way, way, way less than 1%, right? And so you get all the way down, and then you go, oh, well, these people argue because they have this kind of van, they have this kind of van. It's just such a small group, and I do find it a little comical that you could get into such a minute group and still have people in that group that don't agree with each other. It is a little funny to me. Question number 9, this is another good one. What is the official food of van life? Well, I don't know what the official food of van life is, but I will tell you this, whatever it is, it's something that someone cooked inside their van. I have been watching YouTube van life videos for 3 years now, and I've been working on this van off and on for about a year. That doesn't mean if you're gonna build this van, it would take you a year. You could do what I've done in about a week. It's kind of been a off again, on again project for me personally. But when I watch these videos, many van life videos are done by people who enjoy cooking. So I know that cooking, I had some relatives when I was younger who liked to go camping, and when they would go camping, the stuff that they cooked was a big part of their weekend. They planned things around that. Oh, I brought this for my chili. I brought this for that. You know, oh, I've got this corn. I'm gonna do this on the grill. Or like the only thing I ever cooked on a grill, I mean, besides hamburgers and hot dogs, is s'mores. Like I'm just not, I don't cook that much, you know? So would it, for me personally, if I'm driving around from city to city, I'm gonna be eating fast food. Now, is that, I mean, there's a reason this channel's called Big Rob, and it's not because I'm an expert on nutrition. So, the overall vibe of van life is that van life people like to cook. There are some great channels. I've watched guys, there are people that not only cook meals in their van, but there's some people, I've watched several people go out and catch, you know, shrimp or crawdads or fish and cook that in their van. So that is amazing to me. Would I like to come up with some things that I could cook in my van? Yes. Is this going to be a cooking channel? No. What's the first thing I plan on adding once I get my battery situation set out? Hello, Blue Eddie. Hello, Jackery. I'm gonna add a microwave. So I just, that's not something I do at home. I don't prepare big meals like that. My wife is an amazing cook and she loves to cook. She probably won't be going on a lot of these adventures with me. So I'll be left to my own devices, and it's not preparing fancy meals. It's just not something that I do. So what is the official food of van life? I don't really know, but like I said, I guarantee you it's something that was prepared in a van by somebody that knows how to cook. Question number 10, does your van have a name? Well, it didn't for a long time. And van names seem to be like cat names. There's a lot of people that name their cats very simple names, you know, a white cat named Whitey, or Snowball, or things like that, or you know, just obvious kind of names, and names that I mean, I had a dog named Junior, and I went to school one time and found out that there were 10 people in my class that had dogs named Junior. So you know, there's those kind of names, and then there are people that have like kind of funny names, or silly names, or puns, or a name that has some particular meaning to them. So I've seen a lot of white vans, and I've seen people that call it the Snowball Express, and different things like that. So you know, there's a lot of those common kind of things, but I wanted a name that, number one, had some sort of meaning to me. Number two, I wanted a name that could be shortened, right? So I don't want it, like the name, I don't want to be the Expialidocious something cargo van, right? So I'm a fan of the 80s. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. I love all 80s cartoons. I love all kinds of retro stuff. And part of that is I enjoy the Muppets. And there's a lot of Muppet movies, but my favorite Muppet movie is, it's actually pretty close between the first and second one. You know, I love the Muppet movie, but I also like The Great Muppet Caper. And there's a scene where they're on a trip, and they go to a hotel that is the cheapest hotel they could find. And of course, the people at the hotel are surprised that anybody would actually want to stay there. And the name of that hotel is the Happiness Hotel. There's an entire song about the Happiness Hotel. There are bugs and there are mice, you know. But at the end, you know, the big chorus is, well, welcome home to the Happiness Hotel. So when I was trying to come up with something to call my van that I didn't see other people using online, something that somebody had not already used, I thought, you know what? I mean, this van is a piece of crap. I mean, I don't have the floor done yet. I have all these projects that I've started and haven't finished. I've bought stuff that I haven't unboxed. You know, it is beat up. I've fixed the rust spots. I've tried to bang out some of the dents. This is not a new van. This is not a fancy van. But at the end of the day, can you lay your head down on that bed? You can. Can you come in here and sleep and go on an adventure and have a good time? You can. Are there bugs and mice? Not yet. I'm trying to keep bugs and mice out of the project, but it wouldn't surprise me someday if they are. It would not surprise me. So, you know, the Happiness Hotel, it just seemed kind of fitting. And for short, you could call it Happy. So, ladies and gentlemen, meet Happy the van, the Happiness Hotel. When I put a call out for questions that I could answer on my YouTube channel, I really didn't expect anyone to ask anything at all. And I got 15 or 16, so I'm gonna limit this one to 10. I've already got a head start on the next one, but if you have questions for me about van life, about me personally, about the choices that I've made about my van, about building, about anything at all, send them to me at BigRobsVan@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram under BigRobsVan. You can find me on Twitter, which I'm trying to kind of ease myself off of, at BigRobsVan, and always at YouTube /at BigRobsVan. If you can't find any of those things, go to BigRobsVan.com, and the links will be there, or you can go to BigRobsVan.com /links. And I have one of those link landing pages where you can find links to every one of those things. So thanks for the questions. I hope you'll go on adventures with me. I'm a talkative guy. I'm a sharing guy. I enjoy experiencing things, and I enjoy sharing those experiences with people. And as corny as it sounds, I kind of want to share them with you guys. So I hope you're along for the ride. Let's go on an adventure together. It's 50 degrees. I'm freezing here by the lake. I'm gonna go get a hamburger or something. Let's get out of here. I'll see you guys soon. Jeez, cold, God. Why would I do this on such a cold day? Dumb.